My name is Kimberly Howard, and just a little bit about myself. I have three beautiful boys. And when someone taught me this, I'm like, man, I wish that my parents knew about this a long time ago, right? Um, but hey, also, one thing that's important about what we're going to share with you this evening too, how you can use this as well for protection, right? For your babies. I did lose a child 3 years ago, so it's so important to understand why protection is important, even at a young age, right? Because you never know what's going to happen, right? So that's why this training is very near and dear to my heart because it's million-dollar baby, but what does that mean, right? How can we build generational wealth? So tonight I have the pleasure of co-hosting with the great Marlena Smith, who's gonna start us off in the beginning, educate you. What is the million-dollar baby? So Miss Marlena Smith, take it away.
Thank you so much, Miss Kimberly. Again, like she said, my name is Marlena Smith. I too am very passionate about this plan. I have three amazing children of my own, a 17-year-old daughter, a 12-year-old son, and a 6-year-old daughter. And I have this plan for all three of them because it really is like no other out there. So if you've never heard about this before, definitely have your pen and paper out so you can take notes. And we do call this the million-dollar baby plan, but sometimes we also refer to it as the million-dollar legacy plan, right? Because it's not really just for children. It's not just for babies and children, but we're passionate about sharing this financial information with parents and guardians and grandparents because we understand the power of time. Okay. So do you guys know that time matters more than money? So we're going to show you what that means today as we're sharing, but really we're sharing a concept, right? And it's really about starting early and using the right financial tools. So again, I'm really excited for tonight's call. We are so happy to have all of you on here. If somebody invited you, if you were a guest on tonight, please put a one in the chat. We are so honored to be able to share this information with you. If you're able to turn your cameras on, we would love to interact with you. I am beyond grateful for this Zoom era because it gives us flexibility, but also sometimes it's kind of weird just talking to yourself, right? So if you're able to show your camera, interact, please feel free to. But before we go into what the million-dollar baby is exactly, we have to talk about the current financial realities. Okay. So here at Our Infinite Company, our mission is really to empower people through financial education. So we have to start with what's really going on, right? Before we dive into this million-dollar baby plan. So we take a look at these statistics on here, right? So 60 to 70% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck, right? And if anybody has ever lived paycheck to paycheck, you know how much stress, right? Stress that brings to your life. So it's not just about money, right? It's also about your well-being. 40% cannot afford a $1,000 emergency without borrowing or putting it on a credit card, right? So that means, we always talk about what if you need four new tires, right? A mentor of mine always said, is it really an emergency, right? If money can fix it, is it really an emergency? So if we properly prepare and we have that money set aside, these things that feel like emergencies, right? Like I need four new tires. Now I can't get to work. Now I can't get my kids to school. Now I can't make it to the market, or it's going to take triple the amount of time for me to travel. Feels like an emergency. But if you have that money, that emergency becomes just an inconvenience, right? An extra hour you got to spend going to the tire shop. The average American household has debt of 104,215. That number actually sounds kind of low to me, but 104,215, right? Six figures in debt. The average college graduate owes more than 37,853 in federal student loans But the average monthly Social Security benefit as of 2025 is 1,976 per month, which is only 23,712 per year. So less than 24,000 per year, right? I live in California. You definitely cannot survive on 24,000 per year. The average 403b, 401k retirement account is about 240,000 by age 60, which doesn't sound so bad, but when we factor in how long people are living now, right? Life expectancy for men is around 83, 85, up to 87 for women. So that's an additional 20 plus years that 240,000 needs to spread throughout to help somebody in their retirement. So the number one fear a lot of retirees have is outliving their money. And the average person will change careers every 4 years, even less time amongst those that are 35 and younger. So this number right above, this 240,000, is probably going to drop throughout the years because less and less people are the statistic here saying changing careers. I don't know if you guys have ever changed a career, or maybe you've had a job for 1 or 2 years and you contributed into the 401k and then you move jobs, right? A lot of times people look at that account, they're like, oh, it's 5,000. Let me just pull that. I'll start a new one in my new job, right? So if people are changing jobs frequently, they're probably doing that a lot more often also, which means their 401ks, retirement savings are not building, right? And yes, so the average for that is probably going to go down over time because our younger generation is not sticking to one career for 10, 20, 30, 40 years of their life anymore, right? There's so many ways now to make money. So it's important for us to teach our children how to prepare for themselves, right? So tonight we're going to focus on giving our children that financial head start. We're going to discuss how to guide them into adulthood with the right habits and strategies for a strong financial future. Because right now, as it says here, it's time to change generational curses to generational wealth. Okay. So those are the realities. They don't have to be your realities. They don't have to be our children's realities, right? So before I dive any deeper into the Million Dollar Baby, I am going to share this 2-minute video that summarizes what this Million Dollar Baby is all, the Million Dollar Baby plan is all about. And then we'll take a deeper dive into the benefits, how it works, and how you can start a Million Dollar Baby plan for your child.
There's no audio, Miss Smith.
Can you? No?
No, no.
A pretty money-savvy guy once said, "Someone is sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago." So you're ready to start saving for your kids' future. You already understand the power of compound interest over time, so you know the sooner you start, the better. So where should you be saving that money? Let's talk about perhaps the most powerful and least known savings vehicle for kids on the market, Indexed Universal Life, or IUL. IUL stands out against all other savings vehicles in one main area of strength: flexibility. Other financial vehicles lock you into what you can use your savings on, but an IUL can be a first car, a college education, a down payment on a house, a wedding. IUL cash value can be used however, whenever, and on whatever you choose. Plus, since it's built on a financial chassis of life insurance, your child is instantly covered with hundreds of thousands of dollars of permanent life insurance with living benefits, simply as a side benefit of utilizing IUL as your choice of savings vehicle. Now don't freak out, the fact that it's life insurance is actually a good thing. Life insurance cash value comes with a ton of unique side benefits, like your cash value being protected from market losses, cash value growing tax deferred and being accessible tax-free, protection from lawsuits, and IUL cash value is not considered in asset calculations when applying for student loans for college. So, what could one of these policies look like for your kiddo? Let's say you had a baby today. And to take maximum advantage of the power of compound interest over time, you immediately start socking away $100 per month into an IUL. Right away, your child is now covered with $371,000 of permanent life insurance coverage with living benefits. That's a pretty nice little side benefit. And that financial foundation you establish for them today will continue to grow with them over the years and be available throughout their lifetime for whatever they need or want to use it for. Plus, if they don't access that money, right around retirement, their IUL is conservatively projected to hit $1 million of cash value. And at age 65, they could turn on a tax-free income stream of $75,000 per year that will last them the rest of their lives, no matter how long they live. The point is, they have options. IUL is the most flexible savings vehicle for children on the market, and the best time to plant that seed is today.
Hey, so I love that video. We could probably end the call here because it really summarized what this plan is about. But because you have taken the time to spend time with us, we're going to break it down a little bit more. But that's exactly what I did for my children, right? $100 a month into their account. They'll have 70, 80,000 when they're ready to retire in their own pension-like account. But this $1 million baby plan, like that video says, it uses an index universal life insurance policy, which is the financial strategy designed to build generational wealth. Okay, and we're going to show you some examples of that a little bit later. But it involves purchasing an IUL policy for a child at a young age and then funding it over time to accumulate cash value. So that's that savings bucket within this policy. The ultimate goal is to create that lifelong financial benefit, which includes tax advantage growth, death benefit, the ability to borrow against the policy for major life expenses and events. Okay. So the top benefits of a $1 million baby plan, number one is that cash value growth. Okay. So parents and guardians, parents, grandparents, or the legal guardians can open an IUL policy for the child. So unfortunately, aunties and uncles can't. You gotta talk to the parents and the grandparents to set it up. But premiums are paid into the policy, which grows in cash value based on what's called an index interest strategy. So, for example, the S&P 500, and there's something called a cap and a floor. Okay, so to understand how that works, you have to understand the three ways that your money can grow. Okay, so the first way is fixed. So fixed, you're earning a guaranteed interest rate. So you can think of this like your high interest savings accounts, your CDs. It has pretty low risk because it's in the bank. It's not tied into the stock market, but the upside potential is not amazing. Right here, 1%, 2%, 3, maybe you can get a high yield savings account with 4% CD, something like that. Okay. But if we factor in inflation, which is almost 4% or probably beyond that at this point, then really you're just putting your money somewhere, but technically it's a slow leak, they say, right? So you don't see the loss of your money, but if we factor in inflation, then you are slowly losing money if you just have it sitting in the bank. The next is variable. Okay, so variable is based on the performance of the stock market. So the risk level is high because you have great potential for growth, but also very high risk for loss, depending on how the market performs. And we don't know when it's going to go up, when it's going to go down, right? So it's unpredictable. So that downside is that you can lose money when that market drops. So this drop here, if you had money in the stock market in 2008 or maybe during the pandemic, you probably saw your account balances drop significantly when the market went down 20, 30, 40%. So the index strategy, which is what this $1 million baby plan uses, is it offers a balance between that growth potential that you get in a variable account, but the protection that you get in a fixed account. Okay. So the earnings in these accounts are not invested directly into the stock market, but they just mirror the market's performance. So if you see here, right, we see the variable lines here, but this orange one is the indexed account. Excuse me. So when the market drops, these index accounts have a guarantee, a floor. So what that means, so some accounts have a 0% floor. So if there's a 0% floor and the market takes 40%, worst case scenario for you is you don't make any money, but you don't lose any money. Okay. And then when the market is doing great, then you benefit from that upside potential. So that's why it's very valuable, the strategy that these policies use, because you don't have to worry. You don't have to keep checking every day, every month, every year to see if you've lost money, right? You have that peace of mind and guarantee that this account is using an index strategy that has a floor that that protects your money that you're investing into it. So the next benefit are the tax advantages, right? A lot of times people say, why do we need life insurance for children? Right? Well, one of the reasons is because of the tax advantages. Because your money is going into a life insurance policy, um, there are certain internal revenue codes and things like that that provide tax advantages, right? So the cash value grows tax deferred, meaning that you don't pay taxes on the growth as it occurs. And then your child can later access this cash value tax free. So the money will also grow tax free. And when they access it, they will not have to pay taxes and they can use that money for education, for home purchases, for retirement, or whatever else, maybe a business venture down the line, whatever it is that you or they may need it for. And then the third benefit, but definitely not the least, is the wealth transfer and legacy. Okay, so this is where the child can continue funding the policy into adulthood, and it allows this policy to grow into a potential $1 million asset, like it showed in the video. But upon the insurance passing, beneficiaries will receive a tax-free death benefit. Okay, so what that means is if when your child gets older, and again, we'll show you what this looks like on a real life illustration. But what if your child has this and they have a million, 2 million, $3 million, right, in their $1 million baby plan, and they pass away, and that $3 million now goes to the next generation, right? What will that do to your family legacy, to your family name? So knowing that putting these plans in place for our children is not only for our children, but for our grandchildren and our great grandchildren and our great great grandchildren, right? How powerful is that, right? What if our grandparents did something like this? How different would your life be? Right? I know for me, I probably would have made different decisions in, which jobs I took when I was younger, because I didn't have to worry about what benefits are available or will I have this, right? You move through life a little different when you have preparation of money like this. So wealth transfer and legacy is huge and definitely one of my favorite benefits when it comes to this $1 million baby plan. Okay. But maybe you guys are like me, right? When I first had my children, when I first was pregnant, I remember thinking like, man, I don't even know where to start when it comes to saving. How do I know how much I'm supposed to save for college? I have no clue, right? My mom came from the Philippines, moved to the United States. She didn't have anybody to teach her. So we were learning together, right? So I looked at high yield savings accounts. I looked at CDs. I looked at 529 plans, and it just none of them seemed to check off all the right boxes. Okay. But thankfully for me, I have family that's in this industry that when they came to visit me and my 1 month old baby shared the same information that we're sharing with you today. And it gave me that peace of mind that at least financially, I I felt like I was doing the right thing for my child, right? But when you're looking for a vehicle to start saving money, these features on the left here are the biggest features that people typically look for when choosing long-term savings or investment strategies, right? So number one is growth potential. So that means the ability for your money to increase significantly over time, whether that's through interest, through market gains, or through compounding interest, right? So growth potential, all three, high yield savings, a 529 plan, and $1 million baby. I'll check that off, right? Safety and protection. So that means, are you protected against major losses, market crashes, financial uncertainties? A high yield savings account does give you safety and protection. 529 as well, and the $1 Million Baby. So those all check that box, right? Tax advantages. So tax advantages, that's, opportunity for either tax deferred growth, tax-free access, or reducing your taxable income. So high yield savings account does not really have tax advantages, right? Your money that grows in there each year, you're going to pay on that growth. A 529 plan does give you some tax advantages, but I'll talk about the issue with this one on the next one. So it does have some tax advantages for a 529 plan. And then again, the $1 Million Baby, we talked about the tax advantages for, right? So next is liquidity and access to your funds, right? The ability to access your money when you actually need it, right? When it's needed for emergencies or you have a big opportunity that you want to take advantage of, or maybe a life event, right? Like you have a daughter who's getting married, if you want to pay for that. So high yield savings does give you access to your funds. A 529 plan does not check that one off because 529 plans are specifically for education. So if it is not for education, then there will be penalties and taxes involved in accessing the money there. And then the $1 Million Baby plan does check that off because it does allow you to access your funds. And it does not have certain rules that maybe a 401k or 403b may have, where you have to wait till 59 and a half to access it, or you will incur penalties. Now, guaranteed benefits, right? That was a feature I didn't even know I was looking for. So that provides certainty, such as a guaranteed death benefit, guaranteed income, right? Which I said is a number one fear for retirees outliving their money. So having guaranteed income and then principal protection, which is never losing a penny. So that indexed growth strategy gives you that. So again, high yield savings does not provide that. 529 does not. $1 Million checks out. Okay. Flexibility. So flexibility in how much you contribute into the plan, what investments you're allocating to, and with withdrawals. The high yield savings does give you flexibility on how much you can contribute, if you have to continue contributing, things like that. A 529 plan, again, does not have much flexibility because it has to be for education. And then legacy and wealth transfer, we did talk about. Here it does show the 529 checks it off, but this is only transferable, again, for education. So if you're a child that you open a 529 plan for decides to become an entrepreneur and doesn't want to go to college or do higher education, you can transfer that either to another child or yourself or your spouse, or even to the next generation, but it still must be used for education. And then protection against inflation. The 529 plan does check that off because the performance over the years does seem to outpace inflation, and same with the $1 Million Baby. It's been averaging, I believe, between like 8 and 15%, depending on the company and the strategy that we use. Okay. And then the last one on here, which many people do not think about, is it does not affect financial aid. So that was touched on a little bit in our video. But a 529 plan, when you apply for financial aid for your child, that will show up as an asset, that will be considered as an asset. 529 as well. So if you've been saving since your child was born until they're 18, they're going to say, okay, Miss Amanda, it looks like you have money here for your child to pay for college. So unfortunately, we're going to deny your financial aid. Because the money in the IUL is within a life insurance policy, not only does it give you all of these amazing benefits and tax advantages, it also does not count as income or an asset, right? So your money is protected against financial aid, it's protected against divorce, right? So very important for me to have a plan like this for my daughters, right? So they can have something that's theirs, their husband can never touch and take. And again, if the money is in there, for centuries, the wealthy have been using this strategy, right? They have a baby, just like they showed in the video. Once you have a baby, start a plan like this, fund it until they start college. When they start college, they apply for financial aid, right? And allow their child to utilize that financial aid while allowing the money in this account to continue to grow and compound for the next 4, 5, 6 years. And then once they graduate, they take money from that cash value and pay off that loan so their children are not starting their adult lives with debt. So again, a very powerful, sorry, one of my $1 million children uh, just popped in. Don't, you're gonna knock it down, baby. Um, but these are the amazing benefits. And once this was presented to me by my family, it definitely was a no-brainer for me to implement this and put this in place for my children. So I'm going to pass this over to my sister, Miss Kimberly, so I can address this issue here. But yes, I will be back in just a little bit.
Thank you, Miss Smith. Well, as you see, Miss Smith covered all the valuable information, right? So here the benefits. What are the benefits of the $1 million baby? The tax advantage growth that she talks about, right? Your money grows tax-free. The market protection. We always say zero is your hero, right? So if the market goes down, at least your money is protected. So gains are capped, but there's a floor to prevent losses. And the legacy and death benefit, right? Miss Amanda, do you know your great, 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 great grandparents? And she's shaking her head. No, I don't know them either, right? Because they didn't leave me any money. Okay. But, if we had this for our kids and started building generational wealth, right, they will definitely, my great, 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 great grandparents will probably have a picture in my living room right now, right? So it provides that legacy and death benefit, which will show you in actual illustrations that me and Miss Marlena did with our clients and actually for my son. And then flexible access to funds. As Miss Marlena said, hey, you could use this for college. You could use this for education, right? In the video, you could use it for your first home. So loans can be taken tax-free for any major life events and expenses. I actually have a client right now that has this fund, and she said, Miss Kim, I'm going through a divorce. Luckily, as Miss Marlena says, like, hey, they can't touch this if they're going through a divorce. And she says, I need some extra income. So she was able to pull $5,000 from her account. So things like that, right? That it's flexible to access. You don't have to wait until 59 and a half, right? If you're putting in a 401k, and contributions will come back to you one way or another. And we will show you how that works, right? Whether it's through the cash value, whether it's through, God forbid, you get sick and you couldn't work, right? Miss Monica, the living benefits, right? The income that Miss Marlena is going to show you that she did for her client, but also, God forbid, what if something happens to you, right? That death benefit, right? All comes to your beneficiaries tax free. Okay. They don't have to pay taxes on it, which is amazing. So now you're probably wondering, like, how do I set up a $1 million baby plan? Miss Kim, sign me up. I am ready, right, for my child. So let's look at how you set up a plan. So, one, you definitely want to choose a reputable insurance company, right? And the person that invited you today, right? We are licensed professionals. So you want to look for an insurer with strong financial ratings and favorable IUL products for children. So one of our flagship products has been around for 178 years. So they've been through the recession, depression, never lost people's money, right? So you always want to make sure that you're doing business with a reputable company. That's number one. Number two, you got to structure the plan properly. Okay. So every person is different. Everyone has different goals for their children. So that's why it's so important to meet with a financial professional, right? To do what's called a financial needs analysis with you. Okay. The parent or guardian owns the policy, right? Because the child is still a minor, and your child or your grandchild is the insured. So you want to your financial professional will definitely help you choose a coverage and a funding strategies that helps you maximize the long-term cash value growth that aligns with your family's goals, right? So definitely do a financial needs analysis with the person that invited you. And then you want to understand how the growth and protection features do, like the market index growth potential, like the S&P 500, right? How is that growing? How are we protecting the money in index funds? The downside protection with cap and floor strategies, tax advantage loans and withdrawal options if you needed the money, right? And optional riders for future insurability and long-term care. And I'll go over that with you in a little bit. But then the next thing is just really just to apply, right? We don't hand you, Miss Monica, a 20-page application. We actually help you through the whole process. Okay. So we help you apply and then you fund the policy, right? There's minimal underwriting for most children. Usually, I see these, they get approved right on the spot, or sometimes it takes 24 to 48 hours, right? But you just begin funding it early. The name of this game, right, is to start early for our children because of that compound interest, that compound growth. Okay. And then the policy ownership, right? Miss Amanda, once you feel like your child is responsible enough, right? You teach your child how to save, you can actually transfer that policy to them in adulthood for them to keep growing and building the wealth in that policy. It says here, train up a child in the way he should go, right? Even when he is old, he will not depart from it. So, our goal as parents, our goal as grandparents, right, is really to teach our next generation how to save, right? How to build wealth. And it starts with this type of plan. So, we will look at real life illustration. This is actually my son, King David, his policy when was first introduced to this concept, King David was actually a year old. So this is actually our third policy for him because we saw the benefits. It was doing more than a high yield savings, right? It was doing more than our other accounts and it was moving safely. So that's what I loved about it because we were able to. I hate losing money, so I don't like gambling with our kids' savings. So me and my husband were like, hey, we can put an extra $50 a month, which costs $100 a month for this policy, right? God forbid he passes away tomorrow. We never want to think about these things, guys, but it happened to my family, right? He will receive 186,386. That's what the family will receive, even if you put in like let's say $200, $300, and you have this policy in place. But if he lives too long and he needed the cash value, and this is where that $1 million concept came from, because they are young, right? The goal is to compound their money. Look, at age 69, King David has $1.9 million in this thing, and then 2.7 million, and it just keeps growing over time. But one thing that this policy has that my first one didn't have was called living benefits. Okay, and that's why I opened another one for him because they didn't have living benefits for kids yet. Okay, but here, God forbid something happens, okay, you can actually take out from your death benefit. So if he had terminal illness, it has 1.5 million. As you see, the benefit grew over time, and I'll show you. Chronic illness, $30,000 a month. Okay, I'm here in California. I just met with a client. I work for Adult Protective Services, and he just put his mom into assisted living. He said, Miss Kim, it's about $8,000 a month. Like, luckily, they have rental properties and stuff that could pay for it, but all of the money is going to the care, right? So what if they had a plan like this? They didn't have to worry about their other assets or their home. Critical illness, right? Up to 1 million. Critical injury, up to 1 million. Alzheimer's is an all-time high right now. If anyone knows someone with Alzheimer's, my best friend's dad had Alzheimer's and he needed to be watched 24/7, right? So you're able to take out of your benefit. God forbid these things happen. But let's look how I structure his policy, because Miss Marlena will show you a different way on how these policies work. So here we're just starting off with $100, okay? But our goal is to overfund the policy. And that's how these things work. When you overfund the policy, these can definitely do a lot for you, as you will see at the end. So we're starting off like $100 for the first 5 years, and we're like, hey, in after 5 years, we know we're gonna get a pay raise, so we're gonna add an extra $100 to his account, right? That's 2,400. But at age 19, we're gonna show King David, right? Because he's already entrepreneur. He sells things outside our home, and we are already teaching him, okay, you need to save. Right. So we're going to teach King David how to save an extra $200 and put it in this account. Um, and then the next page. So we are only funding this until 45 years old. Okay, we're not putting any more money, but as you see, Miss Amanda, we've contributed 147,600 into this policy, right? That 147 became 412,000, right? And he has a benefit of 886. God forbid something happens. So with this policy, this is just a growth, generational wealth building for him. So we're really not going to take money out, because we're going to take money out of the other policies. But if he doesn't touch this, which he can touch it, let's just say at age 60, he says, hey, mom, I want to buy a house. Here go, you can take out 500,000 from this policy and it's tax free, you guys, right? But here, as he grows older, at age 80 years old, right? You're not putting any more money into this thing. That 147 that you and your child contributed just turned about to $3.9 million. How amazing is that, right? Where can you turn 147,000 to 3.9 million safely, where you don't have to worry about market losses? You don't have to worry about, you know, will it be there? How much taxes I should pay um, off of 3.9 million, right? So this is one example, and Miss Marlena will show you, what if you have a child that's a little bit older, right? And he is already working. What does that look like for an adult, a younger adult? So Miss Marlena, take it away.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing that. We love King David. So this next one again, these plans are not just for children, right? This young adult, he's starting at age 23. I didn't start till I was in my 30s. I too am $1 million baby. It's kind of like that old commercial, right? I'm not just the Okay, I don't really know how to say it. I'm not just the president, I'm a client, you know? Okay, anyway, so this young man is starting his career, and as you see here, it looks pretty similar to King David's, right? We're going to start a little bit higher at $150 a month because he is a little bit older. But again, if something were to happen to him tomorrow, 167,237 would go to his family. And I can tell you guys from experience, right? Miss Kim said, even if you only pay 2 months into this policy, this can be available to your family, right? I had a cousin who was preparing. She didn't have any children yet, but she knew she needed something in place to make sure she had proper protection when she did have children. Unfortunately, on her pursuit to have children, she found out she had a very rare terminal cancer. So she started a plan plan like this with living benefits that was $1 million in coverage in December of 2016. And by February of 2017, she received a diagnosis of her cancer. And just 2 months of premium into that plan, she was able to access her terminal illness benefit of $1 million. Okay. So I have seen it happen firsthand. Looks too good to be true, but we promise you this plan is real and really making a difference in people's lives. Okay. So the difference we're going to do here is if you see if he needs cash, this young man, it shows now we have turned on what's called a lifetime income benefit rider, right? So this is a pension-like income that we are creating for our children, for ourselves, for our young adults, whoever you start a plan like this for, okay? Um, so for King David, he was just letting the cash, they're just letting the cash value grow in there because this is one of multiple policies he has. But this young man, he's going to use this as his form of retirement, right? We talked a lot about Social Security. Will it be around when I retire? I don't know if it'll be around for me, right? Same with him. So we talked a lot about that. And if you remember on the first slide, we said the average monthly benefit for Social Security was less than 2,000 a month. Okay. So he's like, how am I going to live off 2,000 a month? Right. And I look to see what is the maximum that somebody can get from Social Security, right? So maybe that's average. What is the maximum? And what I found out is the maximum for this year is 5,181 per month, right? Doesn't sound too bad, but in order for somebody to qualify for that maximum amount, they have to, number one, they have to work for 35 years. Number two, they have to earn what's called the maximum taxable wage amount, which for this year is $184,500, right? So if we just pause right there, you have to make 184,000 a year just so you can retire with about 60,000 a year from Social Security, right? So that's over $100,000 drop in income per year and huge change in lifestyle that you'll have to do in retirement if you don't have anything else. Okay. And then the third criteria to hit that maximum is you have to wait until age 70 to claim those Social Security benefits. Okay. So I structured this plan for him kind of with those numbers in mind. So as you see, all of these amazing living benefits are still in place here as well for this young man. So he's going to start increasing a little bit quicker again because he is a little older, right? So 150 for the first few years, he'll increase it to 250, 350, 450, and then we're going to level off at about $500 a month, which is 6,000 a year. And the average is somebody usually that people usually put into like a 401k account or something like that. Okay. But if we see he's only going to pay into it for 35 years, okay? So he's going to stop at age 57 and then just allow it to compound. So these zeros don't mean zero. It still means time is working in these spots, right? But over those 35 years, very similar to King David's plan, he put in 181,200 and his cash value is almost $500,000. Okay, so pretty good return on investment, wouldn't you say? Plus, he still has all of those living benefits. Plus, he still has a death benefit. If he were to pass away at age 57, 700,000 would go to his family, right? So they're pretty, pretty sure they're not going to be posting a GoFundMe because he'll have money in place for that, right? But when he turns 70, we're going to turn on what's called that lifetime income benefit, right? So this part always makes me super excited because he's going to get 78,948. And this is at an interest rate showing here of about 6.45%. But like I told you a little while ago, these policies are performing between 8 and 15%, right? So this is, we cannot legally say, but kind of worst case scenario. This is a pretty good worst case scenario, right? He'll get 78,948 per year for the rest of his life. So just in the first 3 years of getting this income, he would have received 236,844, right? just because he put 181,000 in the correct financial vehicle. Okay. If something were to happen to him at age 72, still his family would get almost $1.2 million tax free, right? But these policies are permanent policies, which will cover him for the rest of his life, as long as we structured it and funded it correctly on the front end. Okay. So as you can see here, as he gets older, he's still receiving that 78,948 every year. By age 92, he's already received 1.8 million in income for his 181,000, right? Amazing return on investment here. And then I always say, because you have this strategy in place, financial stress is the number one killer or that cause of health issues. So I believe this young man will live a very long, healthy life. So if he makes it to 120 and breaks those records, he would have collected $4 million in this lifetime income benefit because he put $181,200 into this $1 million baby plan that we call it. And when he passes away, there's still 88,687 that will go to his family. So very, very powerful vehicle. Very important to put something like this in place. The earlier, the better, right? Like we've been saying, but if you are not able to start it for your child when they were first born or when they were 10 or when they were 20, the next best time is now, right? So why early? It's lower monthly premiums and total contributions because life insurance is based on age and health. So a younger, healthier person would have lower monthly total contributions. There are more years for compounding growth, right? So uh, all those years with zero contributions, it's still a time that is allowing for compounding growth. There's greater long-term cash accumulation, future financial flexibility, which we've talked about, and lifelong insurability. So this one is very important because again, we never know what's going to happen when, right? So especially if your children are in sports, right? Things like that. You never know if they're going to get injured or become uninsurable down the road. So starting a plan like this for them early when they are still young and healthy and making sure that you fund it properly, this plan cannot be taken away from them when they become uninsurable, right? So it guarantees their lifelong insurability. All right. So hopefully throughout this presentation, you've seen that what I said in the beginning, that time, right? Time matters more than money. Hopefully you've seen that in what we've shared with you and the illustrations that we've gone over and in the benefits that we've shared, right? So the next steps would be to get back to the person that invited you to this call and set up an appointment with them so they can help you structure a plan for your own child or for yourself and let us help you create $1 million babies, right? You don't have to be young to be $1 million baby, right? We are all $1 million babies on this call. And again, if you were listening to this and somebody came to mind, and you're like, man, they could really benefit from this information, please refer them to the person that invited you or refer them to this call. We do it weekly on Wednesdays, 6:30 Pacific, 8:30 Central, 9:30 East Coast. Thank you for my East Coasters that rocked out with us this evening. I know it's late over there, but we appreciate your time. But again, I am Marlena Smith, my lovely co-host Kimberly Howard. We are so happy to spend this evening with you, and we hope we brought you lots of valuable information. We will see you guys on the next call. Have a wonderful evening, everybody.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
y'all too.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.